gives you a license to actually break the rules. As long as they know, and you know, my thing about it is, you gotta know what the history is before you can break it. Okay, so as long as I know that this river diverted such and such time, then, you know, when somebody says, oh, well, that's not gonna happen, because, no, I've got it written down in the encyclopedia, and here it is. So it's all written down, but I just broke those rules because it was convenient for me to do so. So if I'm making brand new countries within this time period, then that allows me a certain license to be able to change things. But how much is what I always ask myself. So that's the thing. So for some reason I write too many things that have time travel in it. I don't know what it is.
You love time travel.
I actually have
We're going to figure out how to time travel.
I actually have a content question on here specifically about you and your time travel stories, asking about the grandfather paradox. Do you want to just comment on that, or you want me to just go with the follow-up of...
I'll read it everybody first. So
Okay, so the entire question I wrote down was, grandfather paradox, is it auto-corrected by multiverse theory or some other crap physicists and writers have made up? So, you do a lot of time travel stories here, and the grandfather paradox is a very popular way of saying, oh, it can't happen, but what is your official time travel writer opinion on that?
I think that if you skew time enough, then you will alter some of your history, your own history. So you have to be kind of cognizant of how much you're skewing. And I follow that in my book because we have somebody who knows about the history, and he purposely messes it up. And so they have to follow him and try to fix it. So I think in a way that can you ruin your grandfather or no longer be part of the family? If you mess it up enough, sure. But if you step on a butterfly, no. To me, that's not enough of an alteration. It just lets me laugh my head off, actually. But
Stepping on butterflies makes you laugh.
well, how many?
You're a terrible person.
Well, that's the trouble, is not knowing how much if you offer so much, how's it going to react? Are you going to go back in history and find out Shakespeare is never came to be? So I follow actually those particular rules, and actually going back and actually.
You follow the Star Trek rules.
Kind of, except that they do the slingshot thing, which is kind of cool in a way.
Yeah. Well, that's a movie.
So there is cool about science fiction is that you can say what if. What if this time period got diverted so much that you no longer have a grandfather, or that you're not even that family anymore? And then what will change? So you're allowed to do those kind of explorations, and that's what science fiction is cool to me, and always has been. It's your what if, and the answer is you trying to go through it and figure it out. So I don't think that there is an absolute answer to the grandfather paradox. Okay.
I like how serious you were with your answer for such a silly question. I really enjoyed that.
It's a good question.
Just you could see her face, and we'll all go back on YouTube and watch this later, and you see, like, I have to get this perfect.
We're working on you tonight. Here we are.
And everyone's fair game.
That just shows. And what I meant about the butterfly is there was actually a book about that where they go back in time, and one person steps on a butterfly, and before you know it, you have this time wave that keeps hitting.
It's a really bad sci-fi movie. It was.
Oh my God! It was just.
Yeah,
I laughed my head off.
No,
I'm sorry. The
you-
butterfly is not significant enough.
But they made a really bad sci-fi film, also called The Butterfly Effect, that had like this weird time wave crap.
Well,
going on.
actually,
that
that was
good.
interesting to me because that was actually a fracture in the head.
Yeah.
He had the gift of being able to go back in time. I think there's a possibility you can.
I think that was more of a Wizard of Oz effect, though.
They didn't include that in the movie.
See,
The whole
there's just so many possibilities. It just boggles the mind.
That'd be cool to do the whole change of
Don't
personality.
idea.
The change of personality, like having your main character constantly have to figure out who he is through time because of the changes he's making.
In the trilogy I have, they do parallel universe jumps, and in real life, scientists actually have 3 theories on parallel universe, 3 types of parallel universe, and I picked it's called Theory 11. So it's based on real, actual, so they have a couple of different theories. One of them is that universes are like paper, and there are a bunch of papers next to it, and like the black holes connect through it. So that's the parallel universe theory I use, and that is, in a sense, is a type of time travel. And what happens when you go through that, they actually have a loss of memory because of the whole, it disrupts your system so much, and the chemical imbalance and everything, all the way to the cellular level. So there's this whole change that happens. So
Of course, I agree with all this because I agree with publisher, so.
yeah,
Your time travel source had to approve it.
yeah.
The time travel approver here. at the table.
The queen of time travel had to approve my form of time travel before she would publish it.
Yeah, I have an entirely different theory on it too.
There's a lot of theories.
Do
and a lot
not
of
give
sense.
me a romance where the heroine falls asleep on a bench and wakes up another time. I will shoot you between the eyes and put you out of misery.
Well, it's like they also
We'll
say
edit
like
that section out. We
the
won't
whole
threaten
idea of
anyone.
ghosts being like the whole clock,
Right.
theory is that, when time overlaps, you may get a hint of what happened in the past.
But
Yeah.
and you have to have some kind of plausible reason.
There has to be
for that
some
happening.
law, yeah.
And if you just broke a total law there, and you gave me no real reason. So I put you down. Actually, I throw across the room.
Hopefully it's a soft
All the little
script.
dents in her wall is a book that's been thrown against the wall.
Just get a picture of that. It's the wall
That's a
of,
comic strip.
the wall of refusal.
The wall.
Refuse. Well, that's how it really happened.
They're still stuck in
I
there
actually
too.
have 2 books that
Really
I
sharp.
never finished editing because they were crap. Okay?
I'm so glad I didn't submit my.
Is that why I haven't got my book back?
I want to ask another process question. Is there any software or anything I need to know about to help me write?
I just use Word.
Anything that collects letters together and keeps them as sentences is probably going to work for
I
you.
just
You can use your
use
email
Word.
I
editor.
use
wanna
Word
know
and
if
Google.
There's anything, like you say, you really build your characters, flesh them out. Do you use something? I know,
I'll show you. I write in Wayward Dreams now, which I'm a new program. About 6 years ago, I got this started. 2008. We were getting books started, and my partner said, "Well, how can we actually create books, especially ebooks just started showing up?" And I said, "Well, we had a program to put these chapters together, but have chapters separate to begin with, so you can move around chapter because Word is a pain in the butt to move chapters easily." So he built it for me, and I said there's certain things that have to be in a print book, and your headers, possible footers, right and left facing pages, that kind of thing has to have some help in the book. And I'm pretty fussy about those particular things. So, because I emulate the big publishers when it comes to how it looks. And so he designed it for me, and I use it for everything. Ideas, short stories. I even built a newspaper in this thing. So,
I work in Word, so before I start writing, I have one file that is called, it would be Trinity Outline. And I follow the same structure all the time. The name, I go with the physical characteristics first, then I do the personality characteristics, then I do the backstory. So I have set things that I do. It's not a spreadsheet, it's just an outline that works for me. It's all very personal, how you organize your thoughts. This is really cool.
This is my software.
Oh, I use that too.
Yeah.
And Word.
It has like this leather-like, it's leather-like, it's special, it's a nano book.
very organized.
And each one of these tabs is a different book. So, and I obviously take a ton of notes, because I even have one entire trilogy I think has 1 page on it. And my husband drew on it, he's an awful drawer. So,
I like how the table is split up. I don't have my notebook with me, but I also have like a pile of paper like this. That's just notes and quick sketches of items that I've got included, and I've actually done like a full like 24 by 36 map of the world and actually gone through and colored things in. And I love world creation, which looking online everyone seems to not enjoy it, but I really do enjoy it. It's like, this is lots of fun. I just put stuff together. Of course, I also have like the real science of it. So when I'm looking at my world, I actually can tell where the tectonic plate lines are. So where earthquakes should happen. I don't just randomly make an earthquake appear.
I love that you have lots too. I like authors that have lots. I drew the palace first.
The palace.
Yeah. I had it written, all drawn up in dot matrix line paper. Seriously, back when, and that's when I started. Time conference all back then. Dot matrix printer. And I found it when I almost died by 10 years ago, and I pulled it out and I was reorganizing. And I said, well, first of all, I cracked at the time. But I said, it's time. It was time. So I sat down, that's when I sat down, I wrote 296,000 words in 6 months.
That's a fair
Sometimes it
amount, right?
takes almost dying to do that kind of thing.
Yeah, you have to be reminded of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, you have to have that little boost.
What normally comes first for you guys, the world or the character?
What's that?
What comes first, world or the characters? We discussed character creation, but yeah.
Interesting question. It's like chicken.
It's like the chicken and the egg, right?
In my case, it is actually somewhat we discussed earlier. I created the world and then kind of started creating characters to fill it. And part of my writing style is just when a character is needed, I make them.
Well, you would have to with that kind of book, I think.
Right.
Yeah, it's like I'm writing in like, oh wait, I have to make this person. I'm going to do that real quick, and I kind of get sidetracked. There are fantasy creatures in my stories, so I got to a point where I hit basically a dwarven nation. It's like, well, crap, I've designed this entire society, and everyone else who's here. I better start making these people. I have to come up with names for all these people and all the different places they're going to, and on top of describing where they're living at. And it's like, oh wait, now I have to write the damn story part for why they're all here. So I had to create all this so they were there, but it was helpful for me to actually just walk through in that case. Like I have the world, and I have stuff I want to do with it, and I just have to get the characters to where they need to be sometimes, or just make new ones up because the other ones aren't supposed to be there. Which is why there's 2 separate trilogies, not one series of 6 books. Because there's no reason for some of my characters to go where they would need to. Like, I'm not gonna just make them go somewhere. I do want my characters to organically explore along their adventure, but I did the world first. So.
For me, it happens at the same time. Because in my Brethren series, I have 9 angels, and so I have to know exactly why what world they're in. So, okay, yes, they're living amongst us, and nobody knows it. And I have to know what their capabilities are. And I have to get that set in stone, so that throughout the series, there are no breaks, and I'm not breaking any rules or any laws. And if I do add something, then it has to be explained. It has to be a reason why all of a sudden they're able to do this. So, side by side, parallel, they happen together. In the Book Waitress series, I definitely have to sit back and do some world building before major shifts. Like after these 3 novellas in here, I had to sit back and I had to develop, they have to collect 13 relics. Where are they going to go? What are those relics going to be? How are they going to get them back to where they need to go? Who's going to be in charge of it? What's going to be happening while they're doing it? Well, that team is doing that. What's my other team doing back home at the ranch? Dealing with what kind of beasties are coming across Hell's Portal, and what are their capabilities? So there is a lot to flesh out before I can move forward into the next volume. So because that's where we're headed. Actually, the next 2 volumes are, I have to make sure I know where everything's going. Then I can go and say, okay, really the characters are set. The main characters and the supporting characters are set, just like a TV series, they're set. And then we have guest stars in there, and that would be the demons and the beasts that come on and they have to fight in battle. So imagine the Angel series, that's what it is. So there's a lot of world building. You have to know where you're going. When are you going to build up the intensity of this particular beast? Who's going to be less powerful? Who's going to be, giving them a run for the money? So that's what I do.
think I was about 3/4 of the way through that big chunk and realized, I had a realization that what I just wrote was actually the beginning of the entire series. Yeah. So that was an oh my God moment. And I tell everybody, it says, I picked up that scene and put it at the very beginning of the book and then rewrote it. You've got to be able to do that because not everything you write is going to make it into a book or books. Because you got to say, okay, this is the reason for the whole entire series right here. So now you got to resolve it. And that's what the series wound up having to do. From that, wrote synopsis for 14 books. So that's it.
Neither. I don't know how I come up with my stories.
You kind of have the world already there, so I had to make an entire new planet.
I have a plan. I have an entire new planet.
Real world here.
I have an entire new planet in this trilogy, and this one is alternate universe. So I mean, there's definitely.
Did you write those before you had your characters or alongside it? It was timing.
No, this literally started off as a story I was writing for my business marketing plan and turned into a science fiction novel. So it was.
Totally went out there.
When I say it's neither. It really is neither. I will start with one line of a story, and I only envision that one line or one scene, and that's it. And I will start that scene and let it unfold like a film. And it was the same thing the first chapter in this book. I had this scene of this woman sitting at her dining room table. No idea why she was there, no idea who she was, no idea what was going to happen. I just wrote that scene, and next thing you know, I have a full-length novel 3 months later. So, and that's literally been the case. It's not the first chapter of this one. I don't remember what chapter it is, but it was literally, this woman was looking out the shutters of her home, and she sees this woman fly by, and I just pictured the scene. She sees this woman, this young girl, probably like 16, 17 years old, go by, and she pictures, and this is the thought that goes through her head. She says, I'm glad this young girl is out there because when the zombies come and get her, they will go to her first and not me. And that was the scene that was in my head, and I developed this entire book. Same thing with this one. There was a centaur knocking on a purple wall. And I wrote that scene in it, so you know I have an entire book. So it's not world, it's not character, it's literally one scene in my head that just develops into an entire story. And I think every one of my books is kind of like that.
Yes, sir.
How comfortable are you with retconning something that you've already established or even published? Like if you're writing a series of books and you already have the first book or maybe the first 2 or 3 already published and out there, and you're working on the 4th book and you find that it works to introduce something that kind of runs contrary to what you've established previously, and that you might have some challenges inserted because of what you've already established before. I mean, that would be like a retcon, a retroactive continuity, because you have to go back and explain why this fits, or just put it in and hope no one notices, or I don't know how else you can answer that.
We'll let you go first.
Yeah, I can answer that because that happened in Angel Rising. Angel Rising is a duet of books, book 1 and 2, and it's the 4th and 5th in the Brethren series. It has Gabriel in it, and the rules that I set up, there are 3 types of brethren, a protector, a savior, and a warrior, and they never share duties. They work together in teams of 3, so the protector protects the warrior while he's out meeting out brethren justice, and the savior saves all the souls, and so on. Well, Gabriel was the first to manifest on earth, and he did mete out justice, and he's a protector, he's not a warrior, but he was the first. So in Brethren Beginnings that introduces him, there's that exception to the rule. He was the first to manifest, he had to do everything. Well, Angel Rising is now the 4th in the series, and at this point he's been working with a whole team of 9 and his trio. So how can I resolve him wanting to slay this evil dude that's in here? I'd be going against my rules, so I had to come up with, what rules can I instill that will keep the continuity going? Well, you can do it if you're provoked. if he's provoked, then he has the right to wield his sword and do what he needs to do with it. And so his warrior buddy says, you have an axe to grind, and I can help you with that. I can go into provoking you, and it'll all be good. So it is very tricky. It is very tricky.
You have to remember, your readers will remember your story better than you will, because you're not writing your story in a matter of days, where your readers are reading it in a matter of days. So something they read 3 days ago is a lot fresher in their memory than something you wrote like 3 years ago. So you don't want to just throw something in there because you want to. Your readers will pick up on it and they will rip it apart. And readers are way smarter than I think a lot of authors give them credit for, because they will pick up on the things that you never in a million years would have even thought of. So if you're consciously putting something in there, as an author, you sometimes have to take it out, no matter how bad you want it in that story. If it doesn't make sense, you can't put it in there because it has to make sense. So.
Now, in here, if I just left it, okay, yeah, he can do it because, he was provoked. But what happens is that it's a matter of retribution on his part for being so tortured. I won't go into the whole story because it's in here, but the fact of the matter is he himself is so torn up by what he's done, by slaying this evil guy. He says, what have I become? I'm supposed to be a protector, not a warrior. So he goes through this whole cycle of just doubting and not, I can't believe I did this, I don't belong as a brethren anymore, and he flies off and tries to kill himself, an immortal is trying to kill himself, because he just can't stand what he's become. He's no better than the evil that he's trying to fight. So we have that inner struggle going on, and how it's resolved is left for you to.
As authors, I think we always have a point where we're like, I should have put that in the book. I should have done this differently or something. And, you kind of have to let go. It's like a painting. You can keep going back and keep adding stuff to it. This one I'm actually rewriting, and it's a book that to me, it just needs to be rewritten. But most books you just need to let go and move on. And once you close that chapter, literally, you close that chapter and you move on with the story.
I waited for new beginning better.
Apparently, it's working for her to do the Etch-a-Sketch
Yeah.
setup on the book. I would have to say it'd have to be something amazing. It really would have to. I'd have to find a way of making sense of the new thing that was there. Or, as Deena was saying, just use it as a way of torturing your characters. I will admit there are some things I put characters through because I want them to develop a certain way.
Terrible God.
I am a terrible divine being. Yes, I am. To some people. Okay, for pretty much all of them. Yeah, that's pretty mean to a lot of people. But you really have to be very careful, because it is very true that readers will remember things in your book better than you do. That's just the nature of the beast, and something we all have to be prepared for. And people are very attached to the works that we create. It's very strange to see how passionate individuals can get about something that's not theirs. Fans are very, very touchy. I think anyone who saw the Ben Affleck being Batman, travesty of the internet that occurred.
Or the ending of Gone Girl. It's like a little different book. People flipped the lid over it.
Yeah, I haven't read the book, but I've heard it was decent, so I don't know. But stuff like that, like people flip out about these things. I will admit I did it for the latter half of the Two Towers, Lord of the Rings film, because I was so displeased with how they changed it. Like, you didn't need to do these things. But that was me as a fan, being concerned over a piece of work that was taken over from the estate of Tolkien's family and everything, and their decision of the movie. It's like, I'm just one fan who's like, that's not happening in the book. This is terrible. Why are we doing this?
And that's why there's message boards.
And that's why there's message boards.
Did I answer your question?
Yeah, actually, that kind of raises another one in the sense that, like you're talking about the movies are basically a new draft of the book. Even if they're really faithful to the original book, they're going to make changes, sometimes big ones. Sometimes one's going to just make the story easier to show through images and sounds rather than thoughts or feelings that you can convey easier in a novel.
Right.
But you know, something like that, I don't know if you've actually, say, adopted a story from another story, or if you've actually adopted one of your works into a different one. But then you already said that you're writing a new draft of your book. How necessary do you think? Because these days, I've met authors who have had books that were published like 10 years ago, and then they go and then they add like 10 new scenes or 100 pages to it, and then re-release it almost like a director's cut.
You've been hanging out with George Lucas, is that what it is? He's changing all that stuff.
Well, for movies, yeah, but I've actually seen that also with novels.
That's what I'm doing with this book, is I'm rewriting it, and it's part one in a trilogy, so it has to keep the storyline, because obviously the second book is still out there. And
So book 3 hasn't been written yet.
don't remind me. And due next month. It's just one of those things where you have to see, it's more of a executive decision. It gets to a certain point where you're like, you know what, this just needs to be rewritten. If this was a standalone book, I wouldn't have rewritten it, but because the third book isn't out yet, and my writing style in the second and third book is much better than this one, I wanted to rewrite this so that it's more cohesive as a trilogy, and it's not right now. This book completely stands apart as far as quality of writing. And when a third book comes out, when the last book comes out, you're going to have a whole new group of readers, because a lot of people don't buy series until they're complete. So that was the decision behind that. If it wasn't for this being part of a trilogy, I would have just walked away from it. I have a book that another one I'm going to probably be writing the ending of it, and it's a mini series, and it's just because the ending failed. So we're rewriting it and we're going to republish it. So it just depends on the book. And then there's other books where people are like, I want more of it. I'm like, I'm done. It's that story's in my past. So it just depends. It's book by book.
Well, yeah, I asked her already to write something else in Alice Hill, and she said, no, nothing else there.
Yeah.
Is that easier with self-publishing? There's short stories that turn into novels. They have to change that story, obviously, to make it.
This was a short story turned into a novel, and it's just, is it easier as a self-publisher? I don't think self-publishers probably do it as much. I think it's probably a lot of the times it's your publisher who's pushing it and saying, let's get a little bit more from this. And that was the case with this one. It was, we want more, and I'm like, there's nothing else. So we turned it into an illustrated book, which made it a new story.
With self-publishing, it's the readers who clamor for it.
Right.
And make you consider, can I do this? Because that's what happened.
Right.
Remel's novel, Romantic Suspense. It was a short story. And it was like, tell us more. Well, the short story itself wound up being part one of 3 parts in a full-length novel. So, if you agree with people who are clamoring for more, if you can see the more, you go for it. If you can't see the more in it,
Yeah. It depends.
Of course, we resolved that,
What?
not having enough to the world.
This one? Yeah. And we've also opened this up where other authors can take the characters too, which is kind of
It'd be
neat.
her say as far as continuity, but, we have definitely the other characters that haven't been introduced yet, in that particular world, actually taking off and doing your own short stories.
I have a good one. We'll talk later.
Okay. I'm not writing any more of it though.
Another
It's
thing
not
about
happening.
changing it up is that, in this day and age, a lot of authors get their rights back from their publishers, and then they re-release these books under self-publishing, so they kind of straddle the fence. And so that gives them the opportunity to say, wow, I haven't seen this book in my hands in like 5 years, 10 years, however long. Boy, my writing has changed, and I really would like to sharpen it up, crispen it up, and I'd love to put more in it. I'd love to see this happen and that happen. And so by getting the rights back and reworking it, they have the opportunity to do what you said, add some deleted scenes.
Yeah. Well, it's like Jordan Summers wrote, she was with Tor, I think 10 years ago, and the book with Tor fit a certain demographic because Tor has her certain readers. And so they chopped it up and they didn't let her do certain things with her book. She finally got the rights back to her book, and she now turned it into the book that she wanted it to always be. So it's such a hard question to answer because there's so many different situations, and you just have to do what you think is right is really the bottom line.
And hopefully people like the new incarnation.
Hopefully.
Yes, make sure people like it. And that is kind of key to being a successful author. You had another question?
So now you've written your first book or two, and you want to get it published, or you want to get, where do you go with this? So you have your first two books done, where do you go with this? Do you go for a literary agent? Do you go for online? Do you go, what do you do next?
That would be a Patty question. So,
That's a
Patty?
good one. That's what I'm going to go with.
Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, I wrote Trinity and Relic 6 months apart. Okay, those were two. What did I decide to do? I thought, okay, this was 5 years ago, so I think I want to get an agent. So I went on query.com and I queried like slews and slews of agents and heard back from a few, and heard back from one that was really interested, and then that kind of fell by the wayside, and then ebooks just exploded, and I was courted by a publisher, and so that publisher took those. You have to decide for yourself, how do you want to publish? Do you want to go for the big five? Do you want to go small press? Do you want to go ebook? Everything is out there for, or do you want to self-publish? It's all out there for you. You have to decide which way to go, but I strongly recommend you submit to a publisher first. There's so many benefits to being a part of a publishing house.
So,
Before you do that, you need to have somebody read it.
I think there's two.
oh yeah,
Yeah.
get that literary agent and get it, and have them do the
I don't know
work for
literary
you.
You don't have to have
You
it.
don't have to have an agent.
Okay.
It just it depends. Just because all the ways that we mentioned, self-publishing, literary agent, publisher, each specific member of those groups have their own way of operating. There are literary agents that will only work with people who are like on their second or third book. They want to see that they're going to make some money off of it because they get paid when you get paid pretty much, and they usually take whatever portion they think they should off that.
Yeah, a lot of agents are only taking people who've written 2 or 3 books already.
Right, and then also the publishers who will take nothing from you directly. You have to work through their approved list of literary agents, which are going back to, once again, the ones that have multiple books that they don't want. And then there's publishers that will take it directly from the author and say, hey, cool, let's do that. And you have this whole slew of people that can do that. And there's also a small economy that's come up with the self-publishing where they will link you to artists that can do your cover art. You basically say, I'm willing to pay this amount for cover art, this is what I want, and they make money off that, doing the artwork for you, and then you put the textbook together and you publish it, and you end up with a book that's out there and you can get in front of people. But it really is all of the above strategy. Though I would have to say first, after having someone read it, is just get ready to hear things you don't like to hear. Typically being no a lot. And that's probably the first thing you have to get prepared for. But I guess we'll have Patty tie it all together at the very end for being our publisher on the table.
Well, yeah, when I started as an author like everybody else.
So you hated publisher so much you became
Well, it's actually
you
kind
took
of
over
her fault.
you took over the evil role of
And then it's Tina's fault getting me back into it. I was going through all the different conferences and learning about, agents and sitting in front of agents and doing my, 5-minute or 2-minute, depending on who it was.
30 seconds.
Pitch.
Yeah. And so, you learn a lot doing that. I think that you should go through that process. My partner didn't want to go through all that. He felt he was old enough to, I don't want to do all that. I just want you to publish my book. And well, I didn't publish books then. I published magazines. I published, every other publication, but I've never published a book. And I said, well, that's completely different. He goes, it's on paper, isn't it? Yeah. It's completely different. It's not different paper, it's just different. And he goes, well, I think you can do it. So then I had to, really look at it and decide. So I jumped into it for him. And I saw all the authors were being, screwed by these other companies. And it's just not right. Here I am an author too, and I hate seeing that. So before I knew it, I had all these people coming to me. And I had a bigger heart. So I got into some books that I honestly should have probably not gotten involved in at all. And was disillusioned by the whole business for a while. But then it's Tina, we're falling out. We did the Apocalypse book in one weekend.
Literally.
Weekend.
Literally.
Almost literally.
I finished writing it a
she
week
was
before it
finishing-
was out.
Yeah, she was finishing writing it.
We run a spell check here. Do that real quick. I got
She was
this.
editing it, it was literally
I
sending her
edited it,
chapter
and
as
then
a.
I had to, you know, produce the interior and get it, finish it, and get it to print. I went into the printer on Sunday night, and we had it in our hands on Wednesday. So, literally,
Wow, that is
No.
pretty quick.
I got a purse out of it, so there you go.
Bribery apparently is the key to getting your book done quickly. I should have thought about that with my publisher.
Oh, yeah, sure, we can do this. I just won't get any sleep, it's okay. But, you know, you really should try the process. You might have a.
We don't recommend that, by the way.
Recommend trying the process.
Yeah,
No, we don't
No,
recommend
recommend
finishing
doing
the book a
one
week
weekend.
before.
Oh, would you
Yeah.
do it?
Yeah, if she does it to me again, she can owe me a house next time.
Well, we've both done books before, so I wouldn't recommend that for a
Yeah,
first.
it's not my first rodeo, so it's not like I was trying to invent the wheel. I have 76 books that I've helped to produce to date. So that was number 74. 74.
And
So
you know,
one or
and
two.
what you offer as a publisher is the opportunity for people to learn the process.
Yes.
To have professional editing done, to have professional cover artists work on the cover. And that's really crucial. You want to know what that whole process is, because you know what? Once you've been through it with the publisher, you can then straddle that fence and work on personal projects that maybe you don't want to give out to a publisher.
I agree.
You know, that's this baby right here. But I couldn't do that without having the background of being with the publisher for
I love
a
her
few years.
cover. My color's cover.
And why is that? Because when you're in with a publisher, you get to know people, you network. You get to know editors, you get to know cover artists, you're in that world. You say, hey, do you freelance? Do you freelance? And you get your people together for your own purposes.
That's why I like these conventions.
I was gonna say, you're doing the right thing by asking the questions
Yeah.
and going and talking to other authors. That's the first step. If you decide to go the self-publishing routes, I cannot recommend getting a professional editor enough. I hear people, oh, my husband is a school teacher and they're editing my book. It's like, please spend the money and get an editor and spend the money to hire professional cover artists to do your cover. And, you know, and if you're gonna do the self-publishing route, just make sure it's done professionally. And there's a lot of places out there that do self-publishing now, companies and stuff, where you can do it. Like I know CreateSpace offers editors and stuff, and they have pretty good editors. And then if you're going to do publisher, don't make the mistake I did and take the first publisher who takes you, because I was under the impression, because everybody's like, oh, it's so hard to get a publisher, and it's like almost getting a record contract and stuff. And so when a publisher was interested in my book, I was so excited that I signed on the dotted line. And that was a huge mistake. If one publisher is interested in you, there will be other publishers interested in you. And make sure
It was
that,
kind of a shock, considering that this was not even a slush house. This was an actual small publisher. For her not to have an out clause, I couldn't do anything for her.
and the fact that I actually got my rights back, I annoyed her enough where she hated me and said, please, I am happy to release you. So
So make sure you have someone read over your contract with a fine-tooth comb.
Wow, who would do that?
an attorney,
An attorney.
entertainment attorney.
Okay.
And it's worth the money to have somebody read it. And there's message boards out there with other authors that they can help with stuff like that, you know, and joining writers groups. And if you join something like, if you're a romance writer, you join RWA, you're going to talk to other authors who are going to be able to help you with
Look
that sort of
under
thing.
Predators and Editors.
Predatorsandeditors.com. My publisher's under there. I didn't know. If I had obviously known about the site before, I would have not have signed up with her.
Oh, and let's talk about those publishers that seem like they're publishers, but they're really vanity addresses.
Right, and there's print-on-demand publishers too, so if they're having you, oh, it's $5,000 to sign with me, just stay away from it and self-publish if that's gonna be the case, you know?
You do not pay.
It's like modeling, huh? Like-
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, I got you.
Yeah.
Don't pay for your headset.
You pay for your cover art, you pay for your editing, you don't pay a house
John Robert
thousands of dollars.
Yeah, there's one thing if you're going to have an actual artist do, you know, your actual artwork for your cover and then finish it. You know, I mean, sometimes you're gonna have $1,000 for an actual really good, we're talking about hand drawing.
$3,000.
Kind of like Megan
Yes.
did, okay?
Yes.
So,
I agree.
Right, this is illustrated.
some of them, and that's, again, you're talking about real artists that not just taking pieces, but they're actually drawing it.
Right.
So you're gonna have expectation that's gonna be cost you more for that, but I'm not talking about that kind of cover, I'm talking about piecemeal cover. And I had people, I can't even tell you how many stories I've heard and actually witnessed. Too many, way too many.
So you do your homework.
Yeah, but Predators and Editors is a good site to go to find out if the publisher is good. And it's the same thing with an agent, you can get a bad agent too, so,
For goodness sake, Google the people.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Use social media to your advantage.
Yeah.
And like I said, joining groups like RWA or this, you know, the Horror Writers Association, whatever it is. You
Oh,
know,
I'm all
things-
about networking, and, yeah, that's, again, why I come to this conventions, you know. I've met amazing contacts, so I'm happy about that.
Yeah, you know, you can be in the business for a certain amount of time, you're gonna have at least one person that's gonna hate you.
Mhm.
And you're gonna make mistakes.
And probably me two of them, because I had those two manuscripts I never finished because they were crap. So, they don't like me now.
That's okay, we don't mind offending people, so it's,
They said, well, it must have been really bad that you couldn't finish it. Well, yes. But, you know, honestly, I don't wanna squish your, please, I just said, you need to take it back and really work at it.
Writers conferences are good too, because a lot of agents go to that.
If you do writers groups, see, then it won't be the publisher or the editor tells you it's crap, okay? Other people will.
Yeah.
Well,
Well,
the
it's like-
critique.
see,
They'll
I-
cultivate you, get you thicker skin.
one of my stories I had where it is in the past and the present, so they said, well, why don't you? The group was like, some of it liked it the way it was, some of them said, why don't you make 2 books out of it? I go, well, I'm not thinking about it, I want it as 1 book. They go, no, this is 2 books, no. And I'm like,
As a writer, if there's something that you have a conviction on, stick with it. And you're, I mean, I have a beta reader, I have editors, I have all these people, I have, you know, art readers and stuff, and they'll come back to me and say, I don't think that works, and if I'm convicted on it, I'm not gonna change it. It was like when I sent her this book, and it wasn't linear, and she's like, what's going on with this first chapter? I'm like, if you don't like it, and you get to the end, I will change it, because I wasn't sold that. I was either way, and I'm like, I can change it, I'm not.
And I was open-minded enough to let it.
Yeah, so, you know, if you have certain things that you as a writer say, listen, this is what it needs to be, then stick with it. However, if you sign with the big 6, you may lose those rights. So that's something, if you're the type of writer who wants to write a book and you want to come out the way you write it, then maybe stick with a smaller medium press house, which is the reason why I don't go with the big 6, is because I write my books and I want to come out the way it does, and I want full control over my covers, everything, so.
When you talk about editors too, I can speak to the point that you want to find editors that who enjoy reading your genre.
Read your genre.
What's that?
Read your type of genre.
Right, read and enjoy, because I had, my first 2 books, happened to have been given editors who only wrote, they were authors as well, and editors for this company, this publishing house, and they wrote realistic fiction, contemporary realistic, and they were stuck in the muck and mire of realism. Hello, fantasy. So when you're saying, this wouldn't happen, like, in my world, this is how things roll.
Yeah.
And you're not respecting my world, and it's
Yeah.
very clearly laid out here. So you want to make sure that you have an editor that's going to respect any world that you build and work from there.
that's what Wendy Peeney told me in ElfQuest. She said, somebody came up to her and said, a man would never do that. She said, yes, but I know one. Okay, and how do you argue with that? She's absolutely right.
I had one say, only God answers prayers. And I said, oh, in my world, it's the brethren who do. You can't argue with that. It's what I've laid out for you.
That goes back to the people getting very attached to things that aren't even theirs. Like they get invested and they have certain things they're attached to, both in a story and in reality, ideological as well, that they can't let go of because that is so core to them that the very idea that someone else could think something different is offensive, you know, and it is part of the, well, I'm sorry, it's my story, hence my part of this. So they have to be very politely told that, oh, this is how it's working here, just let it go.
I create gadgets, actually.
You do what?
I create gadgets to get around the circle.
You create gadgets to break rules? We're calling her the rule breaker. You're over there just making stuff up to get around it.
Yeah, they're little
But it's
gadgets.
your word, your rules. That's all. And that is all.
But they have to make sense.
Yeah.
Yes. Always makes
Gotta
sense.
have a green button and a red button, of course.
I like chartreuse.
Sure, sure. What other colors can we throw into a book other than red and green?
So,
Yeah, they get some purple ones.
Periwinkle.
Periwinkle, that's a wonderful one. Find someone who knows colors beyond the tertiary colors. You know, don't ask guys most of the time for colors. You know.